Oh, okay, Assemblymember Campos, come on up.
Thank you.
All right, your item number 3, whenever you're ready,
Thank
please
you,
proceed.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I present to you AB 1676, a bill that would create a foundation to ensure pay equity for women across the state of California. Historically, in the United States, women have been paid less than men for the same job. California has one of the largest wage gaps for African American women and Hispanic women, who make just 63 cents and 43 cents for every $1 a white male makes. One of the biggest hurdles women face in closing the gender wage gap is the fact that once a woman starts in a job where she is underpaid, it is extremely difficult for her to ever catch up in pay. This is because most work is hampered by their prior salary and can only make small incremental bumps in their pay when they move from job to job. In order to enact real changes, employers should not rely on a woman's prior salary to set her new wage for her job. AB 1676 will strengthen the California Fair Pay Act by making it clear that employers and to the employees that prior salary cannot be used to justify a gap in wages between men and women. Members, a bill was passed last year that was signed into law, and it set a strong foundation. But we know that one bill is not enough to make sure that we eventually close this wage gap. And I am before you to ask that you move this bill because I shared with you 2 statistics. Latina women are still very far from closing the wage gap. African American women are very far from closing the wage gap. And if we are going to move in closing the wage gap, we have to make sure that we continue to put policies in place that will give women an even playing field as their male counterparts. And I believe that this bill will do that. I also want to just add that, I'm being shadowed by 2 women from the Girl Scouts, young women. And what a perfect day for women across the state of California who are here, young women, who have ideas of where their future is going to be. And for us to be able to show in this institution that we believe in their future and that they will eventually, by the time they're ready to move on into the world and paying for their way through college and their future, that we're one step closer to closing the wage gap for all women in the state of California. With that, I'm going to ask my witnesses to testify at this point.
Wonderful. Witnesses support.
Good morning. On behalf of Equal Rights Advocates and the Stronger California Advocates Network, I am here to express my strong support for AB 1676, which would clarify that under the Equal Pay Act, an employer cannot use an applicant's prior salary history to justify a pay disparity between 2 workers of the opposite sex performing substantially similar work. Last year, the legislature passed SB 358, giving California the strongest equal pay law in the nation. The law requires that men and women doing substantially similar work under similar working conditions cannot be paid different amounts. The Equal Pay Act also states that any legitimate factor that an employer provides to justify such a wage differential must account for the entire difference in pay. The impact of prior salaries has been shown to be a concern in many different industries, especially in the Silicon Valley, where women with advanced degrees are making, men with advanced degrees are making over 70% more than women with the same degrees. As Assemblymember Campos mentioned, the largest pay gap is for women of color, Latinas, and African American women particularly, who are making 43 cents and 63 cents on every dollar. These depressed wages only serve to devalue a woman's worth and make it harder for her to negotiate better pay, thereby keeping these depressed wages down when she looks for a new job. By codifying that these gender wage disparities cannot alone be justified by prior salary, women will have a better chance at closing this gap. Government officials have started recognizing the issue of prior salary and how it affects the wage gap and keeps the wage gap in existence. On Equal Pay Day last year, the chair of the EEOC advised employers on important steps towards closing the wage gap and specifically mentioned eliminating discriminatory pay gaps on the basis of prior salary history. Additionally, last year, the acting director of the OFCCP, Federal Office of Personnel Management, provided guidance on advancing pay equality in the federal government, warning that reliance on salary history could potentially adversely affect a candidate who is returning to the workplace after having taken extended time off from his or her career, and is not reflective of the candidate's current qualifications or existing labor conditions. Finally, courts have warned that relying on these prior salaries can keep depressed wages down, thereby maintaining the wage gap. For all of these reasons, we urge your aye vote today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Shannon Smith Crowley, representing the American Association of University Women. We're part of the Stronger California Coalition. And when you've heard these bills before, including SB 358 from last year, Aileen Rizzo from Fresno, and she wasn't able to be here today, but I'm going to just refresh the basic elements of her testimony and her situation to highlight how ubiquitous and devastating a problem this is. I would have loved to have had Ms. Rizzo as a math and science teacher. She is so qualified. She's got not only her bachelor's, but she has a master's in educational technology and math education. She wins all kinds of awards. I don't mean to hold her up on a pedestal, but I just admire her so much. She doesn't deserve what happened to her. She was employed by the Fresno County Office of Education, and in her 4th year, she happened to find out that she was being paid $13,000 less than a male colleague with less qualifications than she had. So she thought maybe there's a problem here, miscommunication. She went to her employer and they're like, oh no, we completely based this on your prior salary. I think she'd come from another state where the wages were less. But you also have the situation, say for instance, when women have stayed out of the workforce to raise children. So they basically, no, it's fine. They didn't see any problem with that, the wage differential based on her prior salary. She sued them. She's won on summary judgment. And the court has essentially said, using prior salary is so inherently fraught with the risk of discrimination that it should not be used. But it's ubiquitous. It's something that happens day in, day out. It's kind of like how we used to be able to ask about marital status, and we don't do that anymore. And just in talking with people, it seems like about the first initial response to somebody when you explain how prior salary, you comment the prior salary is discriminatory, and they're like, oh, come on, what do you mean? Give them about 15 seconds. Once you start getting into this and laying out the examples of this, that you can understand how this is cumulatively discriminatory towards women. Actually, while I was just sitting here, I was looking online, and there was a study that came out that was highlighted on PBS, that if a woman making $50,000 a year takes 3 years out to stay home and raise children, it's a cumulative effect of over $500,000 to her. And part of it is the prior salary issue. So respectfully, we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you so much. Bill has been moved. Any other witnesses in support?
Ann Eisenberg, representing National Council of Jewish Women, also part of the Stronger California Coalition. We're very strongly in favor of this bill.
Good, thank you.
Sarah Lindner, on behalf of the National Association of Social Workers, California chapter, in support.
Good morning, with apologies to the committee for the lateness, but Aaron Lewis for the Consumer Federation of California in strong support.
Thank you.
Michael Radigan on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, Santa Clara County, in support.
Cool.
Robbie Sumner here on behalf of California Attorney General Kamala Harris in support.
Thank you.
Seth Bramble here on behalf of the California Teachers Association in support.
Thank you.
Diane Kim from Equal Rights Advocates in support.
Thank you. Okay. Any others in support?
Girl Scout Troop 5915 in Inglewood, California, in support.
Thank you.
Daniela Castro, Troop 5955 from Covina, California, in support.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right. Any others in support? Seeing none, any opposition?
We're not in opposition, but I just wanted to come up and first thank the author and the sponsors for working with us on this bill. And to clarify a couple of points. One, we agree that prior salary should never be the sole factor in determining somebody else's future compensation. And so we all agree upon that. And what this bill actually captures is the balance that we actually do consider prior compensation as a part of the entire hiring decision, but it shouldn't be the sole factor. And so the language says that salary by itself cannot justify any pay disparity, which we agree with. And so from that basis and for those amendments, we are removing our opposition to the bill. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Chris McKaylee on behalf of the Civil Justice Association of California. We too thank the author, staff, and the sponsors for the amendments that were taken and remove our opposition.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senators, Julianne Broyles here on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors of California. We are part of the coalition that originally opposed. Appreciate the amendments and removing our opposition at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Javier Gonzalez here on behalf of the California Restaurant Association. We want to thank the author and her staff, along with the sponsor of the bill, for taking the amendments, and we have now removed our opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Rice, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, the same position with the coalition, removing opposition. Thank you.
All right, happy to see that there is no more opposition. Senator Jackson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And as the author of SB 358 and as the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus, moving fair pay, as the Assemblywoman observed, that was a first step, a critical step, an important one, an historic one perhaps, but certainly this is an issue that also needs to be part of the framework for making sure that we have that stronger California. And I noted a lot of the advocacy groups who are part of our Stronger California Coalition. I'm delighted that you're here. Delighted also that we've been able to get the opposition off the bill. I hope there is a point in time where we won't even ask about prior salary. The fact that it is still, that we can ask about it, I understand we had to take that compromise to get the bill passed. There will hopefully come a day where people are paid on the basis of their performance, on their education and experience, and that salary will be irrelevant, certainly, hopefully in this building as well. In the meantime, though, this is an important step forward, and I'm proud to be the principal co-author of the bill. I wish I had been able to move it, but I am going to strongly support this bill with a strong aye vote. And thank you for your good work, and thank all the advocates who are in the room. And hopefully we're going to continue moving this bar and leading the nation, by the way. We are leading the nation. The Equal Pay Bill was the strongest in the country. There are states that are looking to us. How did we do that? I hope that states will follow suit now on this particular and very, very important fundamental issue as well. So with that, this is an exciting moment, and I look forward to voting for it.
Great, thank you. Any other members want to say something? Seeing none, the bill has no opposition. Do we have a motion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to judiciary. Mendoza?
Aye.
Mendoza, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Your bill has 5 votes. Now, congratulations,
you.
and thank you for bringing the bill forward. Okay, based on our sign-in list, Mr. Hernandez, Assemblymember Hernandez, you're next. Thank you. Mr. Hernandez, we'll go ahead and take item 2, AB 1669. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senators. AB 1669 will establish a bid preference for contractors in the solid waste hauling industry who agree to retain the prior contractor's employees for a period of 90 days. As solid contracts come up and change hands at the local level, This can create a concern and uncertainty for drivers who may not know whether they will continue to have their job after the contract changes hands. This bill is not a mandate. It simply provides that if a contractor agrees to retain the drivers for 90 days, they will receive a 10% bid preference. This bill is patterned after similar law for public transit contracts that has been on the books for over 10 years. Recent amendments have garnered the support of Recology, one of the largest waste contractors in the state, and we have agreed to take additional amendments in Appropriations Committee, and I understand we'll remove the opposition of some of the other opponents of this bill. With all of that said, I respectfully ask for your vote.
Mr. Chairman and members, Barry Broad with the Teamsters. We are the sponsors of the bill. Let me make a couple of basic remarks. Since in 2004, there was a bill passed that dealt with this issue. This essentially extends that same law to employees in the solid waste industry. Now, what the bill does is says that when these contracts change, that the workers get retained for 90 days. It's the bidder does not, this is a voluntary bid preference. They don't have to do this if they don't want to. So any bidder can decide whether they want to accept this bid preference or not. They only have to retain qualified employees based on general hiring practices. So if there's an employee, and some of the opponents have written letters saying, well, what if it's like a bad employee? If there's an employee that has excessive absenteeism or was fighting on the job or was suspended for this or that, they don't have to do that, and they only have to retain them for 90 days. Since this passed, there is, in the transit industry, there has been no recorded litigation at all. It's actually worked perfectly as a policy, as good as anything I've ever worked on in my entire career, in the sense that basically what's happened in the transit industry is the bidders all take the preference, which means it doesn't change the cost to the local government because they all get the same preference, so the lowest bidder still gets the bid. Workers aren't churned as these contracts happen where they have a job, they're doing a great job, and then all of a sudden, they lose their job and they're out on unemployment, and they're on, and essentially the taxpayers in one form or another, whether there are other employers paying payroll taxes in the unemployment system or whatever, are paying a cost for someone who everyone agrees is qualified to continue the work. And so it's really helped in the transit industry. This bill has nothing whatsoever to issues about contracting out or not contracting out public services. These are services that have been contracted out. This doesn't change the economics or the decision about that. Solid waste is some place it's municipalized, some place it's contracted out. This does not change that, just as it didn't change that in the public transit area. It is merely giving these workers a chance and to go on with their lives when they're qualified. And often, just to make you understand what happens in solid waste, is these workers, they know the routes, they know the customers, they know the people, they know the businesses, they know the special little things that they need to do. And the new contractor coming in, they're not coming in with a workforce. They may be coming in with equipment or without equipment. They're basically bringing their management services in, but it's these workers that actually know the business. And it's a smart business practice, as it turns out, in transit, and it will certainly be a smart business practice in the solid waste industry. So we would urge an aye vote. We have one of our members here who experienced this kind of displacement that can testify. Go ahead, Mark.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the committee, third generation Teamster, third generation garbage man. As a young man, I lived through the experiences of my father and grandfather losing their jobs because of a franchise change and losing medical benefits and salary, practically losing your home. And I lived it firsthand as a trash truck driver a few years ago when we lost Rancho Palos Verdes to a competitor. with a pregnant wife at home, loss of medical benefits, being on EDD for extended period, close to losing my home. So I urge and I vote for this, for relief for all the sanitation workers.
Okay. Add-on supporters?
Say anything?
Sure. Yeah, Jim Smith from Teamsters Local 396. We represent close to 2,500 workers in the solid waste and recycling industries. And I just want to emphasize something that Barry brought up, and that is that one thing that's often overlooked in these discussions when cities and other agencies are debating whether to switch haulers is that experience that the drivers bring, and that like Barry said, they know the routes, they know the cities, they know the streets, they know the customers, they know the ins and outs of those routes and those customers, and that experience is often lost when these transitions take place. And I think this bill would address that, and it would really be a benefit for those cities and those agencies.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, any other witnesses in support? Please step forward.
Michael Young on behalf of the California Labor Federation, just also here in support.
Thank you.
Monteco Zoma Sanchez, political coordinator for Teamsters Local 439, also a delegate to the San Joaquin Calaveras Central Labor Council and the North Valley Labor Federation, urge strong support.
Thank you.
Enrique Serrano, Teamster 439, in support.
Jerome Singletary, Local 396, in support.
Cristobal Ibarra, Teamsters 439, in support.
Thank you.
Jesus Corona, Local Teamsters 439, in support.
Great. Thank you. Okay, any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take any opposition. Step forward.
You guys gotta sit down.
That's pretty neat, Thank you. My bad, I'll tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Jason Schmelzer. I'm here today representing the California chapters of SWANA, the Solid Waste Association of North America. To raise a couple points that I've raised in the past. One, from our perspective, this is a relatively low threshold for interfering in local government contracting authority. Respectfully, there's not an acute issue that's been identified here. There's a general economic preference that we kind of maintain employment for people, which I certainly agree with as an individual and as a lobbyist. However, without some sort of acute problem, basically what we're saying is just when there's a general economic interest that could frankly apply to any industry across the state, we're going to then step into the local government contracting authority and kind of force a bid preference that hasn't been adopted on the local level, and we just don't think that that's wise. Secondarily, the impact on rates. Understanding, obviously, what Mr. Broad indicated about how it's worked in transit, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work the same way in the solid waste industry. So from my members, I've learned that a 10% bid preference could frankly sway a contract towards a considerably more expensive provider of services and have an impact on the ratepayers. So we're concerned about that. Just because it's worked one way in transit doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work the same way in the solid waste industry. And with all of that, I would say, I'm going to repeat one more thing that Mr. Broad said throughout his testimony. It's only 90 days. It's only 90 days. So basically what we're doing is we're stepping into local government contracting authority and potentially driving up the cost on ratepayers for a simple 90-day benefit. Don't know that that's the best way to proceed. My clients are opposed to the bill, and with that, just respectfully urge your no vote.
Right, thank you.
Ronnie Berdigo here on behalf of the League of California Cities. Unfortunately, we have to oppose. We think that the author and the sponsors are well-intentioned, and we're certainly sensitive to job loss when there's a change in a contract or a vendor. Unfortunately, this will drive up costs. It seems to be common practice to retain most of the employees already, and so we're uncertain of why we need to codify this into law. It just limits our public contracting authority at the local level, which is something that we hold near and dear. And ultimately, unfortunately, a lot of these provisions within the public contract code are often subject to legal and contractual challenges. And if a particular vendor wants to challenge a contract, they can just try to identify these different provisions that where maybe a small city didn't happen to check the right boxes. And so for that reason, we're opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any others in opposition? Please support.
Morning, Faith Conley with the California State Association of Counties, also in opposition.
Dylan Gibbons with the California Special Districts Association, also in opposition.
Ed Burns on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, in opposition.
Thank you. Any other in opposition? Okay, I think that any questions from members? Vice Chairman Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the author's good intentions with the bill, but I'm concerned, coming from local government, that the state is putting a mandate on local government to utilize this bid preference formula that may in fact raise rates for their constituencies. Can you respond to how you sell this to the public when the rates that they're going to be paying for these services could very well go up because of this bid preference?
Well, just remember, it's just job retention. It doesn't actually it doesn't bind them to pay any particular labor rate. So the bidder can bid 30% lower wages if they want and drop the cost of the bid as much as they want. The workers, they either accept or don't accept those labor rates. It doesn't bind them to that. So really, all it does is give them the job retention. It doesn't otherwise raise the rates. And while I understand the opposition from local government, it's more opposition that is like, don't tell us to do anything that we don't want to do. I get that. I understand that. That's their standard position on legislation in Sacramento across the board. However, I defy them to identify how this bill could possibly raise the cost of service. It simply doesn't work that way, and it can't, because it doesn't restrict any bid number cost that a bidder would bid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Denham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Broad, on that point, is there anything additional that we can learn from the history of the public transit contractors with regard to any potential additional costs over the years that they've had the preference?
Yes, I can say this. They opposed that original legislation vigorously and claimed that it would cost the transit agencies hundreds of millions of dollars. And I know that the solid waste industry folks that we've talked to, and many of whom are neutral now on the bill or going to be neutral, they call Josh Shaw from the Transit Association and say, okay, it's 12 years later, what happened? And Josh said to them, well, honestly, I have to say nothing. There was no increase in costs. Sometimes people make predictions around here and, say things, and it turns out not to be the case. And I don't see, while I understand that it's a different industry, transit versus solid waste, it's a public contract to provide a service at a specific cost. And in that sense, it's on all fours, regardless of what industry you're talking about or what contracting you're talking about, whether it would be this or any other. There's nothing specific. But what it is, we've made very clear in this legislation and intend to further clarify for the solid waste industry that nothing about this is intended to get in front of the contracting provisions in the Public Resources Code regarding franchise agreements and so on. So we believe we've done everything we can to accommodate the opposition, and I believe we're down to sort of philosophical opposition.
And one more question, if I may. Assemblyman, do you know if anyone from Recology is here?
I don't believe so.
Okay. If they were, I just wanted to ask how it is that they have a comfort level in supporting the bill, and also to have them comment on what I'm about to say, which is raising rates is not something you want to do. and it's not always guaranteed, and there are political ramifications for doing it. And so I recognize what you're saying with regard to what we can learn from the transit operator contracting, and that I think the fact that Recology is supporting the bill makes a significant statement.
I could speak to that a little bit. In our communications with Recology, it's their experience that retaining people that know the ins and outs of the community, that know that are nuanced in how to best move and navigate through town, provide a better service, and they have the connectivity. And for them, it's not about hiring a whole new team of folks that have to learn how segmented streets connect or not connect, and it really provides them, again, for an opportunity to enter a city with the new contract. A new bid winner can come in with the experienced personnel on the ground day one. Most often, when cities, for LA County, for example, home to 88 cities, most of the cities contract out these services, and when they do, they have to staff up. And but this is a tremendous opportunity for them not to have to staff up, for them to have folks that are doing the work, they're doing it well, but maybe perhaps providing the city a more beneficial cost package to their constituents. That, having served in local government myself, I know that when we would go out and put out a bid, the sitting contractor would lower cost, would actually offer to lower cost, provide more service to keep the contract. So I think the bidding process is healthy. I think the bidding process that suggests that they want to keep personnel that know the communities, that are vested in the communities. Most of the workers, at least in my region, live in the community. So it's critical to keep these folks, give them the opportunity to retain their employment and to prove their worth to the new employer. If the new employer doesn't feel that they're up to speed, there's no requirement to keep them in this legislation.
Mr. Chair, I move the bill.
Thank you. It's been moved. One more question for Mr. Vice Chairman Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm still not convinced that the ratepayers aren't going to pay, at least in my view, potentially a 10% increase in rates. If you have a company that comes in and bids $110 for a monthly service, and you have another company that bids $100, you're giving a bid preference, but you're not requiring them to lower their bid by 10%, which means that they're at $99 and the other's at $100, but the ratepayers are still going to be paying the $110. Or 110 instead of the $100. And then you extrapolate that to the number of constituents that are going to be paying for trash service annually. And then, of course, there's always COLAs every year with trash services. So ultimately, you're going to see what I consider a steep incline potentially in the rates. But I'd like Jason Smeltzer to confirm my thought process. I want to make sure I understand this right, because I'm being told it's not going to increase rates, but in my calculations, in a very simplistic example, I see that it will. And I'm concerned about the constituents that are going to have to pay these higher rates based on Sacramento intervening on their contracting.
You'll have to do me the honor of repeating your question. I heard my name, but I didn't hear the question before.
My concern is that through this bid preference, this 10% bid preference is not lowering the cost of the contract by 10% to the municipality. It's just saying we can use this modality, this formula, to give a contract if they keep the employees for how many days? 90 days. So my concern is that the municipality is going to still be paying a higher rate for that service than the real lower bidder, if you will, but because of that 10% differential, they're given the contract, and that's going to be reflected in the rates, in my view.
I think it's a possibility. I frankly think what the author and the sponsor have indicated is also going to be true in some circumstances. In some circumstances, it's going to work exactly as he's described it. In some circumstances, bidders may identify that sweet spot where they can drive up the cost a little bit, but use the bid preference to kind of duck under everybody else as far as the overall evaluation. I think it could work a multitude of ways. I don't think there's necessarily a right and a wrong answer. I don't know if that's clear enough for you, but
well, like I said, if somebody bids $100, $110 a month for a private residence, and somebody bids $100, and they're given a bid preferential if they're willing to keep the employees for 90 days. Correct. Take 10% of $110, $11. They're at $99. The other one's at $100. The more expensive firm gets the contract. Correct. The rate is $110. That is going to be applied to all the residents that otherwise would have been $100. So it could be a 10% increase in the rate to the ratepayers.
I think that's a possibility. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, we do have a motion on the bill, and there's no other questions. I just want to thank the author for bringing this bill forward. Having served in local government, most of the contracts that I've seen turnover, they usually come in very low. Right now, there's trash wars going on everywhere, companies outbidding each other, and the number one losers tend to be the workers. They get displaced, they get moved around, they're trying to find their job, trying to find their employment. I feel bad because it's what's happening right now. If you're in local government, I represent 19 cities, and I know that it's very competitive, and they're outbidding. They're not. None of them are charging more than the other. They're all going to the bottom line, and if they could get the 10% extra, they will take it. So I think it's a step in the right direction. I support your efforts, and with that, Madam Secretary, please call the room.
The motion is due pass to appropriations. Mendoza?
Aye.
Mendoza, aye. Stone? Stone, no. Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mitchell, aye.
Thank you. Your bill has 5 votes. It is out. 4 votes. It is out. And we'll go ahead and go with item 7, AB 2261.